In today's lecture, we are going to discuss writing a good narration. Now, boring, verbose, monotonous narration has given a bad name to the documentaries. In fact, it's because of this badly written narration that documentaries have earned a bad name for themselves. But a narration can really, elevate the level of a film. They can make the film so much more interesting. So let us see the role of narration. Number one, narration drives the attention of the viewer to a particular aspect of the visual. Supposing the visual is a very crowded visual, depicting many things, okay? So you don't have endless time to stare into the visual. If you can look at it for as long as you want. But in a film, it will come and go, and you don't have endless time to look at the visual. So a narration will quickly guide the viewer's eye and drive the viewer's attention to the relevant aspect of the visual. Okay, so for example, I can show you, say, a visual like this. Okay, there are a number of characters, all have equal importance. Okay, so now this visual will not, in a film, it will not stay for very long. Okay, but the filmmaker would like the viewer to quickly notice the relevant thing in the visual. So supposing for this film, maybe this is an important aspect which is not very prominent in the visual. This, okay, which shows that it's a kind of music shop or something like that. Okay, so one can have a commentary with it which immediately drives the viewer's attention to this particular location which is important. Say, for example, you can say that the music store is the venue of jam sessions on Saturday mornings. So the moment you say music store, viewer notices that, okay, yeah, this is indeed a music store. Okay, so it drives the viewer's attention to one particular aspect. Okay, then what else can a narration do? A narration can supply information that is not coming out visually. Okay, now supposing you have a visual like this. Okay, you can see this visual. Alright, so now with this visual, you can have a narration. The tradition of weird fancy dress parties, or the tradition of wild fancy dress parties, was started in this particular island in the last century by a group of French seamen who anchored here for more than a year. Okay, so it's a fancy dress party kind of thing that you can see. But the fact that it was started by a group of seamen who anchored in this island for more than a year, this is an information which is not coming out visually. So you supply that information. So that is another role of the narration. Okay, then narration can give an interpretation to a visual. Okay, so a visual is very rich in connotations, and different people can react to the same visual in different ways. They can make different meanings out of the same visual. Now, if the filmmaker wants the visual to be interpreted in one particular way, then it can be done with the help of the narration. So I show you one visual, it's interesting visual. Let me see. See, suppose this is the visual. All of you can see it clearly. So what narration? Just write a line of narration.
From this one or this one?
This one. That will go with the visual. You can take the cards if you want, or you have your own cards. Okay. So you read out. Read out.
We go like this. Where do we go from here? Now that I have the money and the Grammy for the best original score, it's time to explore new vistas.
Okay, so presuming that he has won the Grammy.
Because this movement, this is a guitarist's left-hand movement. I mean,
okay.
So,
interesting.
and the money.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I thought he would be a musician.
Okay.
And he's dreaming big.
Okay. Khushbu, yours?
Mine is very simple. It says, trapped and consumed in this man-made materialistic world.
Okay. You?
I think that maybe some fabric company like Raymond's and someone is publicizing their fabric, like style can be cheap.
style can be cheap.
Yeah.
Basically, is it cheap?
It's expensive.
Very.
No, it's
Shitty
like contradicting
Answer.
the
Okay.
visual.
Okay.
Ma'am, I've just written, if you could see what I could see, then it would be insanity. Money is the world, world is the money. Where could I be without it, honey?
Okay. Okay, so this is interesting. The money is the world, world is money.
Where
Okay,
could I
so
be?
maybe we'll just pick it up because this is also quite ambiguous. I mean, it is in verse, so that makes it interesting, and it is quite ambiguous. Here, he is just pinpointing the musician and all that. Hers is a little negative, So maybe we could go. It just goes well with the mood of this visual. Okay, so we can have that commentary or that narration going with the visual. Okay. Then what else can a narration do? A narration can underline or reinforce the factual and emotional content of the visual. Okay. Say for example, with this visual, you can write a narration that, suppose the name of the place is Cajun. So Cajun is a port town and the sea means livelihood to the people. Or you can say Cajun is a port town where the people live, die and earn by the sea. Okay. So it is, Cajun is a port town. I mean, that is not immediately apparent. So you just reinforce the factual content in the visual, and maybe after that, if you show this visual, okay, so it can, with this it can go that where people live, die and earn by the sea.
Yeah.
Okay. So that underline the factual and emotional content of the visual. Okay. Then what else can a narration do? A narration, a little bit of narration can arouse a lot of curiosity. Okay. So in one of the earlier lectures I had mentioned Nanook of the North. Now in Nanook of the North there is a sequence of it was a silent film, so it didn't have narration, it had title cards. But if it were made today, most probably it would have narration instead of title cards. So there is a sequence of building of the igloo. Okay, so with a lot of effort, the igloo is built with the snow around, available snow, and then a title card comes. Now an important thing is left to be done. Now that immediately arouses the curiosity that now what is it? What is left to be done? And then we see that the window of the igloo, which is made with a different kind of transparent eyes, okay, and the window is made. So before showing the window, you just put that narration, which will arouse the curiosity of the viewer, and also again focus the attention of the viewer to look for it. Then a documentary is usually made up of disjointed visuals, okay, where each visual has its own independent existence. They are not continuous. There is no spatial, temporal or character continuity. There may not be, I am saying. So these independent visuals are threaded together and given a common context through the narration. So narration helps to thread the independent, disjointed, autonomous visuals together into a common context. So that's another important role played by narration. Okay, what else can a narration do? Now in a documentary you take interviews, and all interviewees are not equally articulate. They cannot talk precisely, they cannot talk to the point. Okay, and so if you just want to keep that interview bit, it may become long and boring. By the time he comes to the point, and he doesn't even give you a cutting point. So an option is to summarize what the interview is saying in a narration and put it as a narration. Instead of the person talking, actually put it as a narration. Now that may not be a very desirable thing because you are giving your own interpretation to what the person is saying, but that can make your film smarter looking. It can, depending on the situation, because in a narration you are saying the same thing, summarizing the same thing in a more interesting language, and it makes
more
it much
prepared
crisper.
way.
Yeah. Okay. So that is another role that narration can play. Can you think of any other role that narration can play? Any other important role? Can you think from your viewing experience of films?
Like in films, like how Rishikesh Mukherjee used to use narration, like he used to establish all the characters by using narration. Like in the film Bawarchi, every character was like that. Like
Yeah,
from the physical appearance, he used to build up that this character belongs to is this part of the family. For example, like ये लंबे कुर्ते पहन के चलने वाले व्यक्ति इस घर के मालिक हैं. So उस तरह से there is a humor and an introduction.
Way out also because certain visuals are very difficult to
establish. Certain things are difficult to establish visual. Okay, so that happens in many, even in fiction films, that the introductory part is given as a voiceover. Okay, so here Rishikesh Mukherjee in Bawarchi, he established the characters through a voiceover. That happens. That is quite a common practice. So you don't waste much footage to establish each character by putting him in a situation and giving him dialogues and all that. So in a shortcut way, you can establish the characters.
Especially in a film like Shatranj Ki Khiladi, the whole the context of Awadh was established by a voiceover in the beginning.
By Amitabh Bachchan's famous.
The history of Awadh was totally there in a 7-minute long narration or something.
So there Satyajit Ray realized that people are not well versed with this aspect of Indian history. Okay, and so people had to know, otherwise they will not get the backdrop of the drama. So therefore he summarized the whole thing in the first 7 or 8 minutes, whatever, and he put the entire history with appropriate visuals, which also included animation. Now narration can play another very important role. Narration can be a counterpoint to the visuals and add irony. For example, on the soundtrack, in the narration, you speak about the fundamental rights of the Indian citizen and the directive principles of state policy, that everybody should have enough to eat, and education for all and employment for all and all that. And visually, you show signs of poverty, slums, unemployment, etc. So therefore, the commentary and the visual are contradicting each other, but you are making a point through the contradiction. Okay, so that is also an important aspect. Can you think of any film where a narration has been used as a to bring irony?
Not really a film, but Mr. Patwardhan made a short film which had these lines. I mean, they had visuals of the Second World War and visuals of Ketolai people in Ketolai suffering from radiation and Hiroshima people. And then the song in the background was आ लेके चलूं मैं आज तुझे एक ऐसे गगन की तले जहाँ गम भी ना हो and all that. So that was very, I mean, contradictory to each other and very hitting, I thought.
Yes. So it's like a narration. Instead of prose narration, it's a song.
Yeah.
That's also like a narration. Okay. Before we break, can somebody just sum up the uses of narration?
Okay, so basically, narration helps to drive the attention of the viewers to particular relevant aspects of the visual. A narration can also supply information that is not coming out, visually. Like it can trace the background and it can also give like if the director wants to, like a visual can have loads of interpretations. Like one viewer can interpret it in a different way, and the another one can. So if the director wants viewers to interpret a visual in a particular way, he can, it can be done through narration. Narration can underline the factual and emotional content of the visual. Narration can also arouse curiosity, like the example you had given us about Nanuk of the Law. And especially a documentary, we have independent visuals, and each has they are all self-contained sections. So through narration we can actually thread these independent visuals to a common
context.
Context. And at times, especially again in documentaries, when interviewees are not very articulate or their interviews are very long, then through narration we can give a smarter look to the film, and we can sum up the entire interview in our own.
Right.
And then we have again seen if the visuals and the narration are contradictory, through that we can add irony to the visuals, or it acts as a counterpoint to the visuals.
So narration can be a counterpoint to the visual. Okay, so these are some of the uses of narration in a film. Styles of narration. Narration is usually written in third person, and it's an voice of an anonymous person. Some people say the voice of God. So that's the usual way to write the narration. But narration can also be written in first person. Now, as if it is the voice of an explorer or traveler or a journalist. Okay, so somebody jotting down in his diary or thoughts. So those are first person narration. Now, first person narration is always more personal, more intimate than a third person narration. Okay, third person narration is somebody who knows everything, is talking down upon you, telling you. But first person narration is the person is finding out, exploring and sharing his own perspective. So it brings a personal perspective to the whole film. What are the features of a good narration? Number one, first and foremost, is a good narration does not describe the visuals. Okay, so supposing here you see a man in blue jeans, obviously a good narration won't say that they wear blue jeans in this particular island or whatever. Okay, so a good narration never describes the visual. And number two, a good narration is written in simple, short sentences, easy to follow. Okay. Number three, that even if the film is about a technical subject, they try to make the narration as simple as possible and avoid technical jargon as much as possible. Number four, a good narration does not talk down upon to the viewers. Okay, a good narration should not be overloaded with information. Then again, the viewer will have difficulty in assimilating so much information. There will be a fatigue in the viewer and the viewer will switch off. A good narration should be written and spoken with emotion, and in the process it should emotionalize the viewer. So there should be some emotion in the narration. And lastly, a good narration should not be totally divergent from the visuals. That visuals is showing something and the narration is talking about something else. That should not happen, because this confuses the viewers. Then viewers can't make up their mind whether to see the visuals or whether to concentrate on the narration. Now in this context, I can talk about a small experimental film which has recently been made. The film has been made by an artist called Abhijit Gupta, and it's called Encounter. It's a short 2 or 3 minutes long film. Now in the visual track, you see it's an art gallery and a series of paintings and paper sculpture and all that. Okay, so there are track shots along the things that are exhibited, and one track is dissolving into other or smoothly cutting into the other. So like that, and as if somebody is going around and seeing the exhibits. On the soundtrack, what is there? You hear 2 pairs of feet walking. Fine. Up to that, it's fine. And you hear a conversation between a man and a woman who are constantly talking of food. So after a point of time, you concentrate more on the food, because that is more interesting, because after all the visuals are abstract. Nothing much is happening in the visuals and they're all still. So you forget, you don't concentrate on what you see, you concentrate more on the food. So here what is the person trying to do, the filmmaker? So what he wants to convey is that when people come to the art gallery, it's fashionable to visit art galleries, but when they come to the art gallery, watching the works of art and appreciating them is perhaps the last thing in their mind. They talk of everything else except art. Okay, so to convey that as his maybe anger, his resentment as an artist, so he has made this film called Encounter. Alright, so it's an experimental film because he has tried to experiment whether 2 independent worlds can be put together. So the world of the visuals is a completely different world, and the world of what they created on the soundtrack is a different world. So whether the 2 together can be assimilated or not. Now I give you a small exercise, just a mental exercise here. And the exercise is, I describe a visual. It is one shot, but there is movement in the shot, and you try to write a narration with it. So the visual is that it's a small room, an old room, but the walls have not been whitewashed for quite some time, so the walls are damp Okay, there is a one small rickety bed which is covered with a dusty bed cover. Okay, and in one corner of the room a pair of crutches is placed. And just above the crutches is a picture of a young boy smiling and with a football under his arm. And the picture, the glass of the picture is also covered with dust. Okay, so this is the visual. I mean, this is the situation. Now you can plan the visual. You can give camera movement to your shot. Okay, it need not be one static composition. You can give camera movement, but you write an appropriate narration that will go with your visual.
I thought of a shot where initially the camera is positioned a bit high, then it comes down quickly and includes the bed and the photograph and the crutches. And then the commentary I thought was it's more of borrowing from Natasha's mood. So I thought of a verse in the sense which says, "You're not here, life has moved on, our childhood games and our smiles have gone. But my heart is full and love still new, as I still got the blues for you."
Whose voice is this?
This is the other person, I mean, who's not there.
Okay.
Somebody
wait a
who's
minute.
missing another person
Okay.
and their childhood and
Okay.
room.
So now let's try to match the visual to the commentary. The commentary is very nice. Okay, but it requires proper matching with the visual to bring out the meaning. As I said, the commentary once again.
You are not here and life has moved on. Our childhood games and our smiles have gone.
Okay, you are not here and life has moved on. What exactly does the viewer see at this point? You are not here and life has moved on.
You are not here when that line comes. That is when the camera comes down and includes, and we see that this place is not used anymore, dust and everything. So life has moved on, and this place has become a junkyard kind of a thing.
So what I suggest is, you are not here, show the photograph. You are not here. That means people will know that, okay, this boy is not here.
Yeah.
This boy is no more. So with the photograph you start. You are not here and life has moved on. Then you can start panning and showing the bed and all that. Okay, then?
But my heart is full and love still new, as I still got the blues for you.
Okay, but my heart. Actually, my heart is new. With that, if you can show the crutch, that will be new.
Yeah, I'm including the...
No. But I'm saying matching the commentary with the visual. You know, that precision.
This is where the crutches come in, because I'm including the crutches after that.
So with my heart is...
the crutches.
No. What is the what are the words?
My heart is full and love still new.
My heart is full and love still new. So there you show the crutches.
Yeah.
So then you have to compose the thing that first the photograph is there. With that you are not there. I said life has moved on. Either you pan or tilt. And then when you slowly come to the crutches, then my heart is
full and
love still new.
That is that person's...
yes, with that there's a slow zoom in or whatever. Okay, so that means that my goes with the owner of the crutches. Okay, so then it will make sense. Okay, so matching the visual with the commentary, then it will make sense. Yes, anybody else?
Ma'am, I thought of something. I don't know the proper placing of the camera and the camera movement. This is my concept that I thought that I would begin with the boy's photograph, the happy photograph that you're saying with the ball in his under his shoulder, and then the music from behind, a little boy singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," and the typical tone of the particular music that comes when the little babies, ting ting, that is being played, and the camera it's like a pan that's happening, like the entire thing, the room, establishing the entire room, excepting the crutches, and then suddenly it comes near the window and there's like sunlight, so it flashes light onto the camera, and the person who's watching it gets dazzled in that sense, and the instead of "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," you can hear a screech of a car, as if an accident has occurred, and an ambulance, and slowly again, it comes down again, proper framing comes, and then you see the crutches.
Okay, so there actually I did not mention a window. So if the window is there and if you want to use the window, fine.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you start, that's a very nice way to begin, that you start with the close-up of the picture, "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," then you start panning. Okay, so here again the commentary is contrapuntal to the visual, because when you are panning against the bare damp wall, that bed.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
it's not a happy visual, but the audio is happy. Okay, so it's contrapuntal. It will add to the curiosity. Then you do a 360-degree pan and you come back to the visual. Okay, this time it may not be a tight close-up, it may be a little wider shot. You come back to the visual. When you come back to the visual, then there is the camera, maybe the camera suddenly turns like this in a canted
Back
angle,
screen,
and the soundtrack suddenly changes to a crashing car and the siren and all that, and then you tilt down to the crutch. Okay, so then again matching the visual and the commentary and the other audio effects, everything perfect matching. Okay, so therefore the last lesson for today is that writing a good commentary which is simple and emotionally laden, informative, etc., well paced, and matching it properly to the visual. Okay, so you have to write the good commentary, say it well, and you have to match the commentary properly to the visual to bring out the exact meaning of what you are trying to say. Okay, so anybody has any questions? Yes.
Ma'am, I just want to make a point. I think the voice of the narration also plays a very important role.
Yes.
At times, if the voice is known to us, it's very effective. Like in the film Lagan, the first narration when he talks about the background and the Britishers and India. I mean, he used the voice of Amitabh Bachchan, known to the entire country, and I mean that voice played a very important role. That and especially he used this particular narration even in the promos. So to arouse the curiosity of the
Okay, so a well-known voice. See, Amitabh Bachchan's voice is a well-known voice. So use a well-known voice. So the voice itself gives another connotation that Amitabh Bachchan is saying it. Okay, so now let us conclude before we end today's lecture. Let's have a conclusion of what all has been discussed.
After the break, we basically discussed the styles of narration. Narration is usually in third person, which is we also refer to as the voice of God. But at times, narration is also in first person, and when it is in first person, it obviously has to be more personal and more intimate. Narration can also be written in the form of a conversation between two people.
So two voices.
Two voices.
Okay.
And then basically we spoke about the features of narration.
The features of good narration.
Good narration. A good narration obviously should not describe the visuals. I mean, visuals are already telling us a lot of things, so there's no need for the narration to describe the visuals. It should be written in simple, short sentences which can be easily followed. And even if the film is dealing with some technical aspects or something, even then we should try and avoid technical jargons to make it simple. And it should not, narration should never, talk down upon the viewers. It should never, speak in a condescendingly
superior voice.
It should not be overloaded with information, because otherwise it would be too difficult for the viewers to assimilate information. It should be read as well as written with proper emotions in keeping with the context of the film. And it should not completely diverge, from the topic or from the context, because otherwise the viewers will again be very misled and
confused. And then the narration has to be matching with the visual. I mean, even if it's one sentence of narration, it should match with the exact aspect of it. If you just misplace the visual and the narration even by, a few frames, then also the shades of the meaning can change. Okay, so with that we end today's lesson. So in the next lesson, in the next lecture, we are going to take up writing the audio-visual script.